I can't promise no spoilers in this review, but I can promise this won't be a spoiler full review, and this won't be a spoiler free review. Hey everyone, welcome to Sway Bay Anime. Other than that, let's begin. So white supremacy in anime is nothing new, whether it's the token white character that gets fawned over by simply being white, or the biracial Japanese person getting more attention in the show simply because they are mixed with white. However, for the sake of this conversation, we will be discussing Record of Ragnarok's Adam and his character design. We will be looking through this through a Japanese-European relations historical lens, as well as analyzing what may have led up to the father of creation being depicted as a white man with blonde hair and blue eyes. So let's just get into the conversation. So as we look through Japan's history, we'll see that it's an intersect where it meets with Europe, right? And a lot of times, a lot of European countries were trying to trade with Japan over the history of the country. And after World War II and several wars, and to be honest, it had started changing the culture within Japan. Because before Japan, and even still to this very day, Japan still has this more Japanese pride in some sector of it, but due to Western's influence of it, right, over it, like European influences, as well as trade, as well as media coming in from Europe, you'll see a lot of people praising and being more enamored with white features and white people than they would have historically, right? At the same time, you have people who dislike foreigners in general, right? And they dislike specifically white foreigners because they understand the history of white foreigners and their country, right? Usually when white folks were coming into their country, it wasn't on good terms, right? And then now this is like more, Japan's doing more business with the Western world, specifically, probably Germany, France, Great Britain. And so like these are causing more culture mergers. But as we see, like European culture is the most dominant in the world at the moment, so that is transforming Japanese cultures at the moment. So now we're seeing like white folks being praised in anime, as well as like people who are mixed with white being praised in anime as well. And so like, what does this have to do with Record of Ragnarok? So like, again, like if we look at through historical context, Japanese folks and their first interaction with Christianity was from white people, right? And so because of that was a main influence, and because a lot of white folks and white Europeans who were Christians were trying to force their religion on a lot of Japanese people, like they did in China, right, and Korea, and like all the other places of the Eastern Asian world, right? They started trying to do that as a lot more folks were trying to trade with Japan and stuff like that. So I can understand why the quote-unquote father of creation, Adam in Record of Ragnarok, is being shown to be this white man, because most Japanese people's experiences with Christianity is through white people. Most people in America's experience with Christianity is through white people. Whether you are a brown Latino person, whether you're a black person, whether you are an Asian person that lives in the United States, whether you are an indigenous person that lives in the United States, right? An indigenous American person that lives in the United States, you will find that it's the first interaction that you had with that your group of people may have had with Christianity has been through violence and white supremacy and also Western colonization. Whether or not, whatever. And as having a Christian background myself, I think that like that is really interesting to see that. So when I saw Adam as the father of creation, I was like, they didn't even try to rethink of a different way. And I was like, he didn't even have to be black. He didn't have to be Asian. I would have preferred if he was, only because I would prefer that if he was Asian, because this is a Japanese narrative. So it would be interesting to see if they made someone that they believe to be the father of creation in their image. However, I'm okay with them not making him Asian. I'd just rather him be I'd rather him be gold or be like, a different color that is not necessarily associated with a race, rather than being a white person, because I feel like that was just like something that like just uplifts white supremacy, and to have this like very much emboldened and empowered white man like come in. Even though Adam in the story in the anime, because the anime is not bad, even though Adam in the anime is one of my favorite characters, right? because you started liking his story. They did a re-edition on it, and right, even though most of the characters in the anime are white, it's not out of character to have a white character representing Christianity. However, I think that what I see in anime, and not just in anime, but in like media and in storytelling, when it's like non-black people writing, a lot of times black people are not existing in those spaces, but at the same time other races still do exist, and I think that that's something that we still have to really recognize. Like, I think that when I look at space movies or something takes place 20 years in the future or something like that, and it's like black people there, but we never hear the stories of black people who live 20 years in the future or like 1,000,000 years in the future, and it's like these are the starting people, and it's always two white people representing Adam and Eve. And I think that even comes to like us really decolonizing our mind. I know like people throw that word around, but like literally just like removing ourselves from white imperialism and really thinking about like how white people have interchanged, like how the idea of God has been always centered around white people, and like removing God from white people, removing God from and removing the images that we have of God from white people, removing the images of we have from God from gender, removing the images that we have from God from sex. And you know what I mean? Like, because I think that we think of God as a white man with probably blonde hair, blue eyes, or we think of God as a white man with a brunette hair, right? But we don't necessarily think of God as a black person, or God as a black woman, or God as a trans individual, because like, you know, we don't think of God in those ways. And I think that's kind of like due to like what we've been raised and socialized to believe. So I think that like, even this is not like a harsh look at, you know, record of Ragnarok, but I think that this is a strong critique in media in general, as well as European influence over Asia, and how we're seeing even in like K-dramas, right? Like, I was watching this K-drama, and there was a white lady that came in there, and it was like, she's so beautiful, but she was just a white woman, you know, like you know, it was like nothing. Like, they didn't dress her up, they didn't have her come in with extravagant clothes, you know what I mean? They didn't do anything. She was just like a regular schmegula white woman who came into a space, and then everybody was just like, you know. And it's like the fetishizing of white beauty, and how that also has caused a lot of Asian folks specific, and like people of color in general, right, like to want to be white, and also to hate themselves, and to change their features to match whiteness, right? Because I think that at the same time we can look at it as being harmless, but I think that reinforcing white supremacy can also lead to negative mental health consequences to a lot of people of color, especially if it keeps getting forced on you and you don't look like it. The same thing if we have like, you know, I mean, with any person, right? If something that you don't look like is like being forced on you to look like, you're going to try to convert to looking like that, right? Whether it's like straightening your hair so that you can fit in better, or whether it is like speaking in a different way, right? Like, you know, like I have plenty of jobs that say you can't speak black here, right? Like literally just speaking in my regular tone was not deemed appropriate. But I just want to mention all these things, and I hope that this causes you all to think a little bit more about this. I know this is kind of off topic, but you know, whatever. Yeah, just to bring it together, you know, like I hope that everyone enjoyed this conversation, and I think that this is something important that we should have as we watch anime, and hope that anime provides more diversity, because I know a lot of times people are like, anime doesn't have to provide diversity, but I feel like in every anime they at least have like one white person in there, so why can't they have like black folks? Or like, you know, in every anime they have like at least like some like references to Europe or something, or it's entire animes made for white people, like made where like Attack on Titan is an anime centered around white people. Full Metal Alchemist is like another anime that's centered around white people, right? So it's not like expecting diversity in anime is just like out of the question, you know. Like this is something that we should ask for and demand for. Like I think that inclusivity, and that is good too, as well as like for Japanese people to have anime for themselves and to be represented and feel represented in the anime themselves. But other than that, this has been Sway Band Anime. Peace.